Do I get to answer the same question?
Well, I really was just kind of looking for a position description, but now that you have the mic, let me ask a question because I would like you to respond to the next question first. So now that we kind of understand what you all are going to be doing in the office when you're elected, again, as I'm a Marine Corps veteran, I was an officer, logistics officer in the Marine Corps, so therefore I stand for truth, justice, and the American way. So the middle word being justice. Here we are in a dynamic, in a system that isn't necessarily just, but it's based on law. It's based on the letter of the law. Y'all are both seasoned attorneys, people that navigate through the legal systems in our society. So as the elected official, as the Attorney General, how will you enforce justice in a system that seems so profoundly unjust? We'll start with you, Travis.
Well, first of all, let me say that I'm not seasoned, certainly not like my colleague here, because I was a carpenter for 26 years and I went to law school when I was 45. And I came out of law school and worked at a large firm, 150 lawyers, or 110 lawyers at that firm. And by the way, the AG's office has 150 attorneys and 200 support staff at the present time. And they typically hire young, connected kids fresh out of law school. So the Nevada Attorney General's office operates somewhat as a school, and I think that's a mistake. So how would I enforce justice? Well, if I may narrow the question, as it pertains to vets, Nevada is leading the way with some other states in developing a veteran specialty court. And I've been involved with Judge Jennifer Elliott in doing volunteer work down there in the veteran specialty court. And the genius of that court is, when people are, and why the Attorney General's office should encourage that. The AG's office should definitely be behind. The AG's office has a special section that works with the DAs up and down the statewide. And they should definitely work with the courts in developing veteran specialty courts, because when somebody who comes into the system for a specific crime or a bad act and they're before the court, if they're a veteran, they're eligible for not just treatment or for the problem that got them there, but for the whole person. So where we can identify veterans when they come into the system and guide them into the VA system where the whole person can be treated, not just treated for one incident, the problems involving one incident, then I think it does the veteran a service. So that's one example of how the AG's office could enforce justice, meaning a broadening of what it means to do the right thing. Did I answer your question?
Well done.
I think that we have a problem, an ongoing problem in the United States of America, and that is that we tend to, how can I say this? I think that the federal and the state and the local law enforcement agencies have, in many instances, ignored the Constitution, and I'm pro law enforcement. Don't get me wrong, but if you look at my point number 5 on my brochure, I say I'm in favor of the death penalty and truth in sentencing laws, and I want to make big criminals pay their victims back, and so on. Tough penalties for crimes against senior citizens and children and so on. But I will also counsel district attorneys and the police to respect and preserve people's God-given constitutional rights. I really respect and love and honor the principles of freedom that were announced by our founding fathers and put into the U.S. Constitution, and in large measure copied into our state constitutions. Those state constitutions and those federal constitutions were put in place because you have to have a balance between the power of the government to enforce its laws, on one hand, which is the general welfare side of things. And on the other side, you have to have a protection of the individual's rights. And I've been through plenty of criminal trials where I didn't feel like the rights of the individual were protected. Now, that doesn't mean I think a criminal should get away with things. I don't think they should, but I don't think that the government should violate the rights of anybody in order to obtain a conviction. You have to respect the Bill of Rights. It was placed there so that we didn't have unreasonable searches and seizures, and so that we didn't have double jeopardy, and so that we didn't have trials which were just show trials so that anybody could be convicted. We have juries that stand between the people and the government. And the Founding Fathers put those juries there to make sure that the government, as well as the people, obey the law. So I would do everything I can to continue and strengthen a jury trial, and the system of jury trials. And in fact, I think one of the things that happened, that has happened over the last 30 or 40 years in our law is terrible, and that is that many of our issues that we have with the government, if you have any kind of an issue like with OSHA or some other government agency, you don't get a trial. You don't get a trial by jury anymore. You get a trial by a bureaucratic court, which is not your peers. And they've, in large measure, done away with that jury trial that stands between you as a bulwark of freedom between you and the government, both state and federal. So I would do everything I can to try to reinstate the right to a trial by jury, so that we can always have that bulwark of freedom standing between us and the government. And I think that will help us to have better justice. Now, you don't have to have a jury trial if you don't want one, and you can always waive that. But when your rights are at stake, either your economic or your rights of freedom are at stake, you should have a jury trial. And when we have disagreements with the government over our employment, over our jobs, over whatever it is, we should have the right. We should have the right to have a jury trial. And the fact that that's been done away with in probably 90% of our disagreements with the government is not a good thing. So I would work for that, among other things. But the Constitution of the United States and the first 10 amendments are the standard that we need to follow. The people need to follow it, the government needs to follow it, the police need to follow it, the Attorney General needs to follow it. It needs to be followed, and I think it's a tragedy that in today's world, many of our elected officials and judges and prosecutors, they ignore it. And it needs to be enforced. And I will counsel the district attorneys and people that work for me, live by the Constitution. That was the standard our Founding Fathers gave us, and that will give us the closest thing to justice that we can get. Thank you.